Hi there, folks. My name is Emily.
And my name's Elf.
And what are you doing? Okay, I'm going to try to explain to you all right now what Elt is doing, but it's going to be a little bit complicated. So first of all, she's standing on her head, which seems like a very uncomfortable way to do a podcast, by the way. You might want to rethink that. So she's standing on her head, and she has a plate of cookies balanced on her feet, which is impressive, I'll grant you, but the cookies are too far away from your mouth. And there is a little ring of ants circling her head, trained very well. And there's some other stuff going on, but I'm just focusing on, what are you doing?
I'm practicing, I'm getting in touch with my inner core self and practicing absolute oneness with the world.
Question. If I eat one of those cookies, will you lose your oneness because they smell really good?
Obviously I'm going to lose my oneness, and what's the parrot going to eat when it comes to join?
Crumbs?
Would you feed your parrot crumbs?
No. Okay, fine, I'll leave the cookies. But you said that to be professional podcasters, we get paid in cookies. And it's been a week, so I need more cookies.
What is this? I need. What is this? I don't negotiate with people who need. I negotiate with people who want to give and be part of things. Yeah, we are part of things. You give me cookies and I eat them.
This is it's a cycle. If you made cookies but no one ate them, what would be the point?
Because it's part of the oneness to make the cookies.
I don't even know what this oneness is. I'm going to move on because we have a really cool book to talk about.
We have a fantastic book to talk about.
Oh, fantastic. Which actually, is kind of appropriate. So, we're talking about Steelheart by Brandon Sanderson. And the reason I say fantastic is important is because it's sort of about what you might think of as superheroes. And the word fantastic makes me think of superheroes, except they're not superheroes. So, Steelheart is about our world, but this thing has happened called the Calamity. And when the Calamity happened, certain people got epic powers, which are like superpowers. And we're not really sure why it happened or how it happened, but certain people got these powers. But when they got these powers, they didn't turn into superheroes. They all turn into supervillains, and they just go ravaging the world, killing the regular people and subjugating them. And then our main character, David, joins this group called the Reckoners, who their goal is to eliminate these epics and bring justice and peace and freedom back to the humans of the world. We gave it a 3 for violence, 1 for language, and a 1 on romance.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let's just remind everyone that Brandon Sanderson, if you haven't read any of his books, then you should. After you finish listening to this, just go read all of his books. And if you've read all of his books already, then you should probably just read them again or something. Because he is
By the way, everyone, Elt is doing this standing on her head. I just want to be clear. She's still on her head talking. So I'm actually, even though I really want a cookie, I'm now very impressed.
I feel like I should be doing something masterful when talking about such a master of writing. And that's the real reason why this is all happening. And I try not to obsess too much over any one author or book because I think it's so subjective and something's not going to live up when you do stuff like that. But you definitely get, from the Brandon Sanderson books that I've read, they've all been solid reads. And there's always something very unique about the way he sees things, like creating these epics who are they turn into these mob bosses. So like this one takes place in the city of Chicago, which is Steelheart City, and he turns the entire place to steel. So there's no sunlight because they're blocking the sunlight. They all live in these steel, homes. Everything's been turned to steel. And, he also has, there's this idea that the more they use the powers, the more evil they become. And this is the book 1 of a trilogy. So the next 2 books they're going to explain a little bit more. one thing that he does that's smart is that he wraps up the story of Steelheart with the, in Chicago. Oh, now New Chicago it's called. And then the next 2 books each take place in a different city. So it's a great opportunity for world building because it shows us what these other, this place is run by a epic that does, this like New York becomes this like underwater glow in the dark kind of city, which is really interesting. And then there's another one that's on like the back of a turtle or something, that moves. It's a moving city with salt. I don't remember what city that's supposed to be. Yeah. But there's a lot of interesting stuff. Like this one, Epic thinks he's kind of like this like religious figure and he has to destroy everything because of sort of religious reasons. It's really, really, it's a very interesting world that he builds. But so aside from all the other great stuff that Brandon Sanderson does, one of the reasons why I'm a massive fan of his is because he keeps the language mainly clean. So language here is still one because
yes,
we do have the damn word in it, but Sanderson is very good at picking a word that's going to be like this universe's kind of like swear word, which is what I've always been saying is that if you're making up a universe, then make up a language to go with it. So even though they're all speaking English and most of what they talk about is all kind of the same stuff. So in this one, it's spark. So if anyone wants to say like, oh, crud, they use the word sparks instead. And when you read it, you're not feeling like, oh my God, what is this language that they're using? Because it's not a word. It has no negative connotations to us. There's another, maybe we'll end up speaking about it eventually, but like his sci-fi there's a YA sci-fi that he's working on now, the Skyward series, and that one is Scud. So every time there's something to say Scud. And that's the way it's done. He chooses these simple words and it works. And you don't have to go overboard with the language because now you just have these words that are kind of meaningless to us, but it means something to these characters and I don't have to deal now with all this crazy, terrible language. And then romance is one because David's got this big crush on Megan. In the next 2 books, they actually end up kissing or talk about kissing. Sanderson's not great at romance, which is kind of good because I don't feel like his books need the romance. And sometimes you're kind of
totally didn't need it this book.
Yeah, and it's sometimes like, oh, are you just putting it in there?
I felt like it took away.
Yeah, I don't know so much what his like thought process is. Like even the Skyward series, first book doesn't have it, second book but it's like here they kind of use it to ground Megan. Like, oh, I want to stay on the good side. Oh, because it ends up being that Megan actually has superpowers. She's an epic, but so they kind of use it to ground her. And like David's like, oh, like he like sees Megan like kicking butt, and she's with her guns that are holstered everywhere, whatever, and he like totally falls in love with her then because he's David. But and it's great, that's fine. But
I think that part would be fine if it didn't go further. Like if it was just a crush, but there never seemed to be anything reciprocal. I feel like that would work for the story because it would work for the character and who he is. Because I love David's character.
Yeah.
He's super cool, but he's also this big nerd who keeps on trying to deny he's a nerd, and I don't understand that. But he's really bad at metaphors, and it comes up a lot. He's a very quirky, interesting character. He's kooky. So if he just had this crush, like this kooky guy having a crush on a super cool girl, I think that works because it's just fun.
Right.
But once it's reciprocated, it takes away the fun. And I'm like, oh, okay, here we go.
Right.
Romance, blah, 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 blah.
Right. So it's also, Sanderson does not spend overly much time on the crush, even though it keeps coming up, but there's not so much time spent on it, which is good. And it's not like, when I looked at her, I felt like all the stars aligned. And there's no like fancy language in that regard,
True.
Which is, I am grateful for.
That's true.
But, so I don't know, like maybe if he thought like if there's this mutual love-liking situation would keep Megan more grounded for the good side. Maybe you just told to put in, but overall, okay, the violence is a 3 because they're taking out epics, so there is kind of killing going on, and there's weapons and beating up and things like that. But overall, when you're reading a Sanderson book, at least the ones that, especially the YA from him that I've read so far, you do get a feel like this is a pretty clean read, and you don't ever feel like he's trying to push a political message, or I haven't felt that yet. I don't feel any like, oh, all these issues of today must be put into the book to show how, how forward thinking I am and show how important they are to me. He just brings you into this new world and just lets you enjoy it, which is fantastic.
Yeah. I liked everything about it except he called Chicago New Chicago, and I feel like he was so clever, and that's the best he could come up with. It felt weird to me. But I really liked it. One of my favorite characters was Cody. So Cody is I think he's the team's sniper.
Right.
He's a Southerner. I want to say he's from Tennessee, but he's definitely from the South. But his ancestry is Scottish.
Right.
So his dialogue is written, oh, don't worry about it, lad. But he's Southern, so you in your head you have to. It's really hard to hear in your head. I had to force myself to hear some guy say, "Oh wait, what's a Southern act? Don't worry about it, lad." That wasn't good. I can't do it because anytime I hear lad or he says, oh, just a wee bit of a problem.
Right.
If you want to go Scottish, but it's not just a wee bit of a problem. Wow, I can usually do a much better Southern accent, but my head is telling me that when you use the word wee or lad, or there are a few other words that he uses, that it's Scottish. Anyway, I just thought that was so much fun. Like, just so much fun.
Because he also makes up
a character
myths.
Like that.
Yes, yeah. He also makes up myths like, oh, where we come from, we say this or whatever. It's like, is that true? And it's like, who cares? Like, he just like pretends like these things are real. Sanderson is also, he blends his casts. So like that's something everyone's like, oh, we need more inclusion, we need more this, that, whatever. The cast is, you have different, I think one of the guys is a black guy, there's one guy who's like a gun guy. And he's like, it's not Cody, it's the other guy, and he's like black and...
Abraham.
Oh, Abraham, yeah. And these things are just like natural when he puts them in there. Which is that's the way it should be. It's not supposed to be this thing that I have to message you about. Right? It's not like, oh, they don't make a big deal about like certain... Like race things are not an issue, whatever. It's just so automatic for them all to be a team. Like nobody thinks twice about it. It's really nice to see stuff like that. And also, everyone's still their own distinctive character. So... He's very good.
Yeah.
He's very good at what he does.
Yes. It was very easy to get into this book and then to not want to stop until I was finished. I started the second book. I know you've read them all. I just started the second one and I had other things to get done because someone won't bake me cookies. I guess I have to bake my own. So I have important things to do. And I told myself, okay, just one more chapter. Yeah. But I couldn't, once I finished the chapter, I was already into the next one and I realized, oh, I told myself I'd stop. But once you're in the middle of a chapter, you can't just stop there. So I then had to finish the next one. It's really good. And I think it's, except for the violence, which maybe would indicate give it to an older teen. But other than that, I think you could give it like to a 14 or 15-year-old, even the 13-year-old, because the violence... Even though there's a lot of it, because the superheroes, to me it feels a little bit different when there's a superhero doing violence because it feels like it's fantastical and it's not so real. So even though people are actually getting hurt, it's also a lot of like they're getting vaporized or things that happen with superpowers. So personally that makes it a little bit less scary and less real, so more readable for a younger reader.
Oh, yeah. He's it's an easy read. His books are pretty easy to read. And, he's not trying to impress you with his, extensive vocabulary. And definitely easy to get into. And he knows how to keep it light while also having some serious backstory. And David is going through some emotional things. He's seeking revenge. Like, I'm going to get the person who killed my dad. And also this idea of, if people really did have superpowers, we always just seem like, oh, they're going to become the next Captain America. Well, that's not necessarily true, is it? Different people do different things with superpowers. So it does still give you something to think about. Not the same kind of thought-provoking as other books, but it still gives you a lot of serious things to think about while still keeping it light and fun and just enjoying telling a story and just enjoying inviting you into this world. So
yes. It's like a literal exploration of the phrase power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely, because we usually think, oh, power in terms of you control things, but this is actual powers like superpowers,
right? And
how they corrupt people. So it's very interesting. And I'm trying to get into my southern accent. There we are. So imagine if someone was talking like this, but they said, don't worry about that, you wee lad. See, once I got to wee lad, I wanted to go Irish or Scottish, but my Irish accent is much better than my Scottish accent. I would love to meet Cody. I would want to see this movie just to see Cody, but I'd feel like if they did an adaptation, it would be disappointing.
Right. Right. They'd have to compromise on something. Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to meet Cody in real life. I want to come across him and know. I want to meet this guy who's from the South, but everything about him is Scottish.
Okay. Well, that sounds like we've got some planning to do.
It does, and it sounds like
anything to keep you from the accent.
Being upside down. Is this your plan? Okay, there are now strobe lights. And is that the Clair de Lune that you're playing? What is... Okay, it's a little bit weird over there. I'm going to get out of here. That's actually as far as my plans have gotten. I'm going to get out of here right now and go do something else because actually it's a little bit transfixing.
Oh, mission accomplished.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks for listening.
See you next time, everyone. Oh My Word podcast is brought to you by the pearl-clutching basement dwellers at Oh My Word. Follow us on Instagram for updates at Oh My Word Podcast, or like and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. For full episode notes and detail, visit eltenenbaum.com. Music is by Tim Burke. Sound is by Gabriel Yaffe. See you next time.